Word of advice to NBA players, don't no-show on your team. That's what Brandon Ingram just did to the New Orleans Pelicans. Is a trade coming? Seems like BI would be happy to move on from the Pels, and the Pels would be happy to move on from him. But when will a deal get done? I'm Trevor Lane. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Turn on those notifications as well and like this video. So here's what happened. There was a voluntary players-only training session for the Pelicans, a little mini camp. And Brandon Ingram, it was believed he was going. He did not. He didn't show up. And here's the thing. This is the type of situation that players miss all the time. Daniel Tice, who's on the Pelicans, didn't go. The reason why? He was in the Olympics. He was tired. He was worn out. Said, no, I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to recover. No big deal. It's voluntary. That's fine. You don't have to go. But if everybody thinks you're going, then you'd better show up. Or at least you better let them know that you're not going to be there. Brandon Ingram was the only guy to just no-show on the team. Now, what's going on? Well, he would like a contract extension. And you know what? Who wouldn't? If I was in Brandon Ingram's situation, I would want a contract extension too. Take a look at this. BI under contract this coming season, $36 million. A lot of money, but he is extension eligible. He's a free agent next summer. Now, when you go back and you look at how many games has Brandon Ingram played recently, this is part of why he's not getting this contract extension right now. But you look at how many games he's played. 64 games this past season, 45 the season before, 55, 61, 62, 52, 59. That's a lot of games missed every single season for Brandon Ingram. And if you're a New Orleans Pelicans side that already has Zion Williamson, who misses a lot of games himself, it's tough to feel confident committing long-term to Brandon Ingram. So why don't they just trade him? Because nobody wants him. That's why. Nobody wants Brandon Ingram. Once again, good player? Yes. Look at that. Again, 21, 5, and 6. This dude can play basketball. He is very good. I would love to have him on any team. But the problem is the price tag and the new CBA. Brandon Ingram wants his extension. In a normal situation, he would just wind up getting traded to a team that was willing to give him that money, but no team is willing to give up stuff to the Pelicans, $36 million plus worth of contracts, plus whatever assets the Pels want in order to get Brandon Ingram, plus give him his next contract. You see, it's the new CBA that's coming into effect right now that is really hampering the trade market for Brandon Ingram and putting him in a situation where he wants something that the Pelicans don't want to give him. And the problem is nobody else wants to give it to him either. It's a situation now where teams simply can't give out max contracts like they're candy. They can't all be Oprah. You get a max, you get a max, you get a max, you get a max. You can't do that anymore in today's NBA. What you have to do is you can max out your top two guys. That's it. Max out your top two guys, and then you're going to need the rest of your money left over for depth. Now, are there some teams that are getting around that right now? They're not going to be able to do it forever, but right now, the Celtics, the Suns, sure, there's a few teams that are pushing that boundary, but the new CBA is designed to try to prevent teams from overspending. So what this means is that Brandon Ingram, if you're going to give him that kind of contract, you are saying that he is one of your top two guys. Let me ask this. How much are you winning? How far are you going in the postseason if Brandon Ingram is your second best player? I think based on what's happened with the Pelicans, we could say not very far. So teams aren't willing to pay Brandon Ingram like he's their second best guy or a first best guy, best player, because if you do that, and in order to actually have a contending team, Brandon Ingram has to be, say, your third best player, well, then you're not going to have enough money left over to build out depth around the rest of your roster. It's really simple. Look, if you have two guys taking up, let's say 30% of the salary cap. Okay, that's 60%. You still have the remaining 40%, plus you can go over the cap to re-sign your own guys and all that. You can have some depth there. If you have three guys that are all making 40 million plus, all taking up 30+% of the salary cap, that leaves you 10% left to build out the rest of your roster. Now, again, there are exceptions. You can go above the cap. But guess what? Let's say you could do four guys at about $45 million. That's $135 million. Salary cap's coming in at about $141 million. So you're right there. But let's say you've got a bunch of your own guys that you want to keep. Let's say you have four role players at $10 million each, and that's below league average. That's below the mid-level exception, right? So these guys are slightly underpaid just to have decent role players, four of them on your roster. Okay, that's another $40 million. You had $175 million at that point on your books. You are $4 million short of the first tier apron. You're about $15 million short of the second tier apron. But guess what? You still have 7 roster spots left to fill. Even if you're signing guys on minimums, you're probably going to hit that second tier apron. And that is simply a no-go for most NBA teams, including the New Orleans Pelicans. So it is extremely difficult to build out a competitive team while paying big money to a guy like Brandon Ingram, who's a very talented player, but at his best, in his best situation, he needs to be the third guy on a championship team, not the second best guy, not the best guy, because if he's the third best guy, that means you got to pay him like $20 million or something like that. And that's simply not a number that he's willing to take. So when we look at the new CBA, we look at what's happened, Brandon Ingram is a guy who's being affected maybe more than anybody else because teams aren't willing to pay for guys that aren't quite in that top tier. They're not getting the money that they used to. And now Brandon Ingram has found himself at odds with the Pelicans. He wants an extension. They don't want to give it to him. Nobody else wants to give it to him. Talented player, very good player. He could help a lot of teams. But at the price tag, the money that he wants, crickets. No one wants Brandon Ingram in the new CBA at this price tag. So he no-showed one event already. What's going to happen when we get to training camp? What happens there? Will we still have an upset Brandon Ingram who either wants his deal from the Pelicans or he wants it from somebody else? If that's not happening, what happens come training camp with Brandon Ingram and the Pelicans? Add on top of that the fact that the Pelicans have a logjam at the wing. They still don't have a true starting center. You've got Daniel Tice right now. He's not really a starter. He's more of a backup. He's the closest thing to a starter they've got at the 5. You just added DeJounte Murray. You're not paying him a bunch of money to sit. CJ McCollum is probably going to start. So that means with Brandon Ingram in the starting lineup, that puts you in a situation where both Herb Jones, who's one of the best wing defenders in the NBA, and Trey Murphy are coming off the bench, and both of them are talented enough easily to start. So not only do the Pelicans have this financial incentive where they don't want to pay Brandon Ingram this money, nobody else wants to give him to him either, and he's going to be a free agent next summer, and the fear would be he'd walk away for nothing. But on top of that, you've got 2 guys who are stuck behind him right now who really should be in the starting lineup, and a big problem to solve at the center position. But again, right now, nobody's willing to trade for Brandon Ingram, and even at a deal that would send a center to the Pelicans. So how is this going to play out? I don't know, but we could see some fireworks at training camp with the Pelicans if Brandon Ingram shows up or maybe doesn't show up because the extension is still sitting out there, not done. Everybody, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Should Brandon Ingram be sending a message by not showing up for Pelicans events? Do you think this pushes them or incentivizes the Pelicans any more than they already are to trade him? Is it going to get done? Or should Brandon Ingram just say, you know what, it is what it is, and show up and play ball? Give me your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on those notifications, and like this video as well. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.